going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, all on my lonesome today to talk about some different stuff. We're going to put the WWE stuff aside, kinda. We're going to put the AEW stuff aside. We're going to talk about other stuff. And yes, you're going to tell me that it's still WWE because TNA works with WWE and AAA is part of WWE, but it really seems to be off the course, off of the beaten path. And I'm sorry as I cough and choke up a lung. It's just a little bit different. I said a while ago in a podcast with Jake, shout out to Jake, go subscribe to Jake and all his stuff, that why I love AAA so much right now is A, it's brand new to me, and B, not a whole lot of people are talking about it, which means there's nobody there trying to, sap the fun out of it. And plus it's brand new and it's different and it's, vibrant and creative and whatever the other words you want to use for it are. And TNA has always been around but has got a burst of adrenaline in its system nowadays with the new TV deal, with the deal that they have with WWE and people being featured all over the place. I still say Carmelo Hayes versus Leon Slater is one of your candidates already for Match of the Year for 2026. That's another story for another day. But both of these, TNA and AAA, had their debuts last week per se. TNA moving to AMC and having the debut that they had that divided opinion, and AAA getting their deal on Fox in Mexico and on YouTube pretty much everywhere else is a thing as well. They had a fun little debut last week with a couple of multi-people matches, a number one contenders match, Santos Escobar came back, etc. But it was really more an ad for this week. So the theme is here, and I'm gonna try and keep it sort of condensed because I don't have a co-host and I do tend to ramble. The theme here is basically going to be, for both of these brands, Episode 2 was better than Episode 1, and they're not going to be full reviews. I just want to pull out some of the key things that happened, and some of them are very close and personal to me and the way I look at the world in general, and that's going to become obvious and apparent pretty damn quickly. But if you look at TNA this week, it was the second live show. I think after this they've done some tapings and what have you, but the Feast or Fire had happened. We had a great match with Moose and Cedric Alexander. We had some ladies in action. It was a bunch of fun, and the selling point was, with JDC retiring, you were going to get the newest member of the system. Now I'm going to start with that, even though it was the last thing on the show, because there's one here that's way more important to me personally. The whole oh my goodness, this is going to sound terrible for those of you listening to headphones. I'm sorry. Voice is still really, really, really gone. To anybody out there that's dealing with the weather that we are all dealing with here, it seems that the entire world is in a bad weather state right now. So I hope everybody's good. I hope everybody's all tucked away and warm and safe and all those things. But if my voice is a little raspy and I cough here and there, you'll have to forgive me. The system came out with JDC, all hugs, all love, all etc., etc., etc. And JDC was out to introduce the newest member of the system. Was it going to be somebody brand new to the company? Was it going to be Karrion Kross? Was it going to be, somebody said Mustafa Ali, which was weird, and some people that had been let go from other companies, this, that, and the next thing. Evil from New Japan, who I'm not very familiar with, who's apparently signing with WWE instead. But it was a lot of people. They said Davey Richards might come back because of the tie-in with Eddie Edwards, and none of that happened. And then JDC announced the replacement for him, and it was Bear Bronson, and everybody kind of went, oh. Nothing against Bear Bronson. I think he's a good, Wrecking Ball, Bronson Reed type character, ironically enough. But it was kind of like, oh, that's fine. That's just somebody else from the roster, okay? So it came down there, big hugs, big high fives, until the low blow came to JDC. JDC, who's leaving the group. You got a low blow on your way out the door, and of all people, Moose sort of went, what the fuck's going on here? What are you guys doing? Etc. They low-blowed Moose as well. So now you've got a heel system that have now turned on JDC, that have now apparently kicked Moose out of the group, and they go to square up, and now it's Bear Bronson and Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards looking to square off with JDC and Moose, and then Cedric Alexander comes down seemingly to make the save, and then he turns on them as well. And the announcement is made by Eddie Edwards that, hey, we're not replacing one member here, we're replacing two. Now, this ties into the beginning of the night, where what we thought was a babyface versus babyface match between Moose and Cedric Alexander ended in a win for Cedric Alexander. Pretty damn good match. It was a pretty damn good opener for the show to lead up into this. Now, the new group, and it doesn't seem like Alicia Edwards knew what was happening either, so her looking confused and not knowing quite where to go added an extra little wrinkle of intrigue to all this. But in general, the new system is Brian Myers, Eddie Edwards, Bear Bronson, and Cedric Alexander. Cedric Alexander should be the new leader of the group, quite frankly, because it's been a long time since anybody used Cedric Alexander properly. But it is what it is. This is the new group. They kicked out JDC because he's on his way out the door. You got the ultimate vile reaction of, oh my god, this was his last night, this was his last time to thank the fans and pass things on to the next generation, or however you want to say it, and you disrespected him on the way out the door. Kind of like, on a much bigger scale, what Gunther is doing with his win over John Cena, as he should, as a dickhead heel. But the other thing about this that's really cool is it allows Moose to stay as a babyface, because Moose has been one of the driving forces in sort of like the defense of TNA against NXT, and I'm sure that's going to continue moving forward, and that doesn't really work if the rest of this group has now turned heel. Bear Bronson as the enforcer, Cedric Alexander as like the young athlete. You kind of get almost... you just picked up your Randy Orton and your Dave Bautista, if you want to make those evolution comparisons. I don't think this suddenly makes the group a main event group. I mean, you had Moose spearheading it before, who was a former world champion and a pretty domineering figure in his own right. I think this solidifies the system as a mid-card group, but it solidifies them as a strong mid-card group and lets some other things happen in the main event scene now. There's going to be people going after I was going to say Carlos Santana, Mike Santana, and his world title. I don't think this necessarily helps that. Now, there are spoilers around concerning the Feast or Fire briefcases that I'm not going to get into here. We'll probably talk about that more next week if I decide to do another video like that next week. But for now, JDC got his butt kicked on the way out the door. Moose is a babyface, but he's been kicked out of the group, and this is now the group as it stands. Where's Alicia Edwards in all of this? Is she going to come down and tell off her husband? It's kind of like any time Roderick Strong goes up against the Death Riders, the babyface Death Riders, with his wife being part of that group. So I want to see Alicia Edwards come out next week with the "Do you want to know something?" And then we'll figure all that out later on. Now, switching over, speaking of Alicia Edwards, speaking of the ladies, we got some good news for a heel team last week in the sense of the return of Ash by Elegance. Now, Ash by Elegance set aside the Knockouts World Championship a long time ago, last year, and said she was basically stepping away. Personal stuff was never really dug into, and I dug into this on the pod with Jake, and I basically said, I hope she's okay. If she doesn't want to tell us what's up, cool. If it's bad enough that she's lost her career, that's absolutely shit. But you know, it's not our business if she doesn't want it to be our business, type of thing. Now, she's still been out there with them, but she's also kind of been playing a babyface commentary type character for the pre-shows of the pay-per-views, and been really chummy with, like Gia Miller and what's his name from Busted Open and Tommy Dreamer and those type of people. So she's been on a, outside of wrestling, she's had a babyface turn, if that makes any sense. But what happened this week was you had M by Elegance, one half of the current reigning Knockouts Tag Team Champions, who are going to be defending soon against Zaruka, which is another fun thing, because they're another tag team that's about to split up. It was M by Elegance versus Indy Hartwell, and I think M got the win, and then there was a double team by M by Elegance and Heather by Elegance, and then it was stopped by Ash, and it's like, okay, is Ash turning heel, or is she turning face rather, and sort of separating herself from the group as she leaves wrestling. She stands up to her own teammates, and then out come Xia Brookside and Lei Ying Lee, the former Xia Lee, to back her up as well, and then she turns on all of them, and the Elegance brand, along with Mr. Elegance, along with the personal concierge, sort of have this 3-on-3 scuffle, and basically she says, you know, I'm back, bitches, that kind of thing. Good to see her back. Whatever it was that was keeping her from wrestling, obviously that's not a thing anymore. She's a heel. She's supposed to get booed. She's supposed to be like, ha ha ha, I tricked you. The Seth Rollins stuff from last year has everybody going, oh my god, you can't, you know, trick the fans like that. You can't be pulling the wool over our eyes. Yes, you can. It's wrestling. It is what it is. If you don't want to be tricked by wrestling, then maybe don't watch wrestling. I don't know what to tell you. It's good though. It's a really good piece of business. It's a really good thing for the women's division. It makes that Elegance brand faction a lot better because you can actually play with the numbers advantage, whereas before, when we thought she was injured, when they thought she was retired, she was just a person on the outside. Now she's an existing threat for anybody that's going after those tag team titles, etc. Sorry for the jump cut. Now, the last thing we need to talk about is, it's already wound everybody up. It's already wound the AEW fans up. It's already wound up the social justice warriors and the Blue Murder cult and everybody else that's, everybody else that falls under the umbrella of when I say it pisses off all the right people. TNA brought back a stipulation that they haven't done in years. And I always think it's a bit trepidatious. I think it's not the best move in the world, to be quite honest with you, but it's the Feast or Fired match. It's basically a 4 briefcase match. For anybody that doesn't know, for anybody that's new to TNA, the idea is there's a post in each corner of the ring. Each post has a briefcase on it. One is a world title shot. One is an X Division title shot. One used to be a tag team title shot, but they've replaced that with the international title instead, so there is no tag team title shot this year. And one is a pink slip, hence the name Feast or Fired. Now, I agree with people that are saying it might not be the best thing to do right now in kayfabe, when there's constant conversation about who's leaving where and whose contracts are up and who's being held in companies and who's being let go from companies and releases and all that kind of thing. So putting basically a lottery thing in there where if you lose your job. I understand the people that think it's distasteful. I don't agree. I think it's a high risk, high reward type of storyline for them to tell. But I get the people that are like, yeah, Feast or Fired is it is what it is. Now, there's a bunch of people in there. Steve Macklin was in there. Eric Young was in there. Mance Warner was in there. I think the Good Hands were in there. A lot of bodies were in there. I would have loved to see a guy. Actually, wouldn't have made any sense for Leon Slater to be in there because he's already the X Division champion. Leon Slater, by the way, still dealing with the visa issues. So for those of you that were like, oh, he had to miss the main, the debut episode on AMC because WWE stole him. Well, he's still not there this week. So what's your explanation this week? But it is what it is. And the last person to enter was... Lights go out. We get that familiar spray paint shaking sound. You see somebody drawing metaphorically on their version of the Titantron, and it's not the Rascals logo. It's the TM logo with the different music. And Trey Miguel, not even a week, realistically speaking, after getting fucked over by AEW. Yes, he was going to go over to AEW with all of his buddies, and then somebody bitched about what he wrote on Twitter 10 years ago, like what happens. Cancel culture happened. Again, it happened to Spanky, it happened to the Briscoes. It took way too long to happen to somebody like a Velveteen Dream on the other side of the coin. Things are not applied evenly. I wouldn't want him to be fired for it, but look at the things that Sammy Guevara said. Look at the stuff that Don Callis has been accused of, etc. They had Ric Flair on there and all the stuff that he's been quote-unquote accused of. But no, we have to They have to fuck over a awesome talent like Trey Miguel because somebody got Twitter pated about what he said on Twitter years and years and years ago, and has since done his due diligence of apologizing for and all that sort of thing. But AEW needs to be the woke company. They need to be the one that pleases all the blue hairs, and they need to get him out of there. So these three other guys get to go into the company feeling guilty that their one buddy just got fucked, and he gets to go, you know, deal with this. Oh, there were clearly people that wanted me out. Because here's the thing, right? This is not anything that I had heard of. This is not anything that anybody in my sphere, any dirt sheet that I had ever read, had ever brought up. And because we do shit like this, people like me, people like Jake, people like our friends over the Wrestling for Life Network, people over at places like that do this full time, like What Culture and all that sort of thing, we're kind of by default in the dirt sheet. We're going to hear every little scrap of tabloid nonsense that there is. I had never heard of this. Somebody went to the trouble of digging and digging and digging and digging and digging because we're going to get this guy. And like I said, it is a popularity contest. If you're as big a part of the show as Don Callis, if you're as recognizable a name as Ric Flair, no, you're not going to get fucked over. And you shouldn't, by the way, if it's accusations alone. If it's actual actions, then different story for a different day. But if you're somebody like Trey Miguel, who's just come on to the market in AEW, and somebody who could realistically be a competitor that comes in there and maybe makes somebody like the Bucks look not so shiny and new anymore, it's much more easy to flick him out the door. Realistically, what they wanted was a win over AEW the week that they had their debut on AMC. And that was to sign the Rascals. I mean, they could have let them all go the week after. I mean, it took away the Myron Reed match. It took away one of the most popular factions in TNA. And I'm not blaming the guys. I am not blaming the guys. You look at AEW, and maybe not in reality, but in theory, you could be performing in front of a bigger audience. So nothing against Zachary Wentz, Desmond Wolfe, Myron Reed, Trey Miguel when he signed. Nothing against them. If they want to see if the grass is greener, good for them. If they want to say maybe potentially you're going to be performing in front of a bigger audience, cool. But ask Deonna Purrazzo how well that goes. Cancel culture is a thing, and cancel culture is a cancer. TNA proving themselves to be the cancel culture proof company is fucking fantastic. It really, really is. They did it with Tessa Blanchard. She's on our roster. She's part of the division. She's probably going to be a champion again. Eat it. They let her lean into the people that wanted to make themselves in the audience a bigger part of the show than they were, and they just carried on. And even more funny to that is her teaming her up with Victoria Crawford. I like Victoria Crawford, Alicia Fox, whatever the case may be. I think they make a fun team. The other lady that's with them right now, whose name has immediately slipped my mind, is terrible. But, again, it is what it is. Tessa Blanchard is there. Trey Miguel is back. Trey Miguel is the one in the group that sort of proved on the TNA side that he could survive without the group. Much like Wes Lee did in NXT when Zachary Wentz got fucked over by cancel culture. I hope and pray that the guys that are in AEW right now actually get featured. I don't think they will be. Specifically, TNA transfers to AEW have not done well. What's Josh Alexander doing? Why is Speedball stuck in a tag team? Why is Deonna Purrazzo in the Phantom Zone? Why is Taya Valkyrie in the Phantom Zone? Why is Ace Austin the 75th member of the Don Callis family? They don't do well over there. They just don't, and they don't get used well. I hope they do. I hope I'm wrong. I'm also really, really happy to see Trey Miguel back into NXT, because when the news came out of him being released the same day he was hired, which is fucking stupid. I mean, I know Tony Khan doesn't cross all his T's and dot all his I's. We saw that he thought it was kind of cool to pull Andrade. Well, Andrade was still under contract because he's a dickhead. But I had theorized, along with Jake, as you guys know, that he could come into NXT. He could be the guy to challenge new champion Ricky Saints, because I'm pretty sure Ricky Saints is going to be the next NXT champion. Instead, he's going to go back to TNA, to a crowd that loves him, has always loved him, probably heard about this bullshit a long time ago and rightfully shrugged it off. But yeah, he made his return. Big hullabaloo, big thing on commentary of, oh my god, we thought we were never going to see him again a week later. Fucking great. The big loss of them not being able to have Trey Miguel on the first show, and the big loss of them not being able to feature Trey Miguel at Genesis, yeah, that was planned. Let's not fool ourselves here. That was planned by an opposition that claimed that, oh my god, why would you ever possibly hate competition in wrestling, until the competition is nipping at their heels. Let's be real for a second, and they used cancel culture as their crutch. TNA, again, being the company to say, fuck cancel culture. Oh, by the way, what happened to Jake something? Oh yeah, he's the 76th member of the Don Callis family. Really, really cool to see Trey Miguel back in TNA, sort of where he belongs. I would still love to see him progress into an NXT, into WWE in general. I'd love to see him dip over into AAA and see what he could do there. But big, cool, gigantic moment. Vindication for Trey Miguel. You love to see it. And he made his comeback in the Feast or Fired. Now, he won one of the briefcases. Eric Young won a briefcase, Steve Macklin won a briefcase, Eddie Edwards won a briefcase, Trey Miguel won a briefcase. Now, I don't think they brought him back to fire him again. I don't think that's a thing. They went and did the whole, TNA has just re-signed Trey Miguel, etc., 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 because I think they were made large offers before they made the decision to go and test the waters over in AEW, which, again, fine. Totally their choice to turn that offer down. But I think being able to get Trey Miguel back, who's awesome as a singles guy as well, I'm pretty sure he came back to a deal that he deserves, which is cool. And now that they're in the AMC era of TNA, I'm pretty sure there's a couple more shekels to be thrown around in that as well. Awesome. Maybe he's got a better deal than he had before. Maybe it's not as big a deal as what he would have had in AEW, but also he doesn't have to deal with cancel culture. So you win some, you lose some. I do not think that they would bring him back again to rip it away again. I don't think that that's a thing. People are saying, well, they did it with Mike Santana and the title. That's not the same as your literal job. Like, I get it. People didn't like the Mike Santana having the title for a month and having it taken away to win it back again. I get that. That's a valid criticism. Plus, they didn't have television for like a month, so he held the title for a month where nobody saw him, and then he lost the title. But that was to facilitate the whole NXT Outlaws program, which is also dividing opinion. I really don't think that that's a thing. Matt Hardy, of all people, going out on Twitter and saying TNA has the opportunity here to do the funniest thing ever. Yes, it would be funny. Trey Miguel himself going to social media and saying, like, I swear to God, if this is the fired briefcase, I quit, is him kind of leaning into what a lot of people had speculated as well. But I do want to say, on a more serious note, speaking of the social media, and this is where you want to take your your little social media victories in your cancel culture and your little cultural digs and wins and all that kind of thing. Oh, he works for X company, so I hope he gets fucked over. Oh, he works for Y company, we better protect him. There's a human element to it, and this is what he put out on social media after the joke about the briefcase. And I mean, in here he does talk about his belief in God and all that kind of thing, and I'm not leaning on that per se, because I know that doesn't exactly resonate with all people, but I want you guys to hear what he actually had to say afterwards. I think this is from Instagram. It's been taken again. But I believe this was initially posted to Instagram. I came very close to quitting. My heart was broken. I felt like wrestling hated me, to be quite honest with you. I hadn't felt a hurt or a loss like that in a very long time. I didn't answer calls or texts, and I spent a little over a week contemplating what's next. It felt like my dream had died as quickly as it was realized. But it's a moment like this that God will show you how strong you really are. If it wasn't for the support system that God has blessed me with, I don't know if I would have been able to turn this decision around. I'm not everybody's favorite wrestler. I don't strive to be everybody's favorite wrestler. I strive to make a little kid's dream come true that had a very hard childhood and only ever wanted to be one thing, and that's a pro wrestler. Words cannot describe how eternally grateful I am for the @TNA Wrestling for saving this dream for me. They were the ones And to the ones who encourage me to stick it out, I will be forever in debt to all of you. If you supported me through this, I love you. If you didn't support me through this, I still love you. There's no room in my heart for hate. Now, with that being said, I still have to show the world what I'm made of, and I'm just thankful to have the opportunity to do it. You can't get more fair than that. He's a better guy than I am. If it was me, I'd be out there, hey, you guys that cheered for my downfall can go fuck yourself. But he's not doing that. Like, he's speaking out against the hate that people say he has in his heart. He's got love for the people that love him. He's got love for the people that hate him. You know, just one more opportunity to go out there and kill it. And it is very much, and I don't want to draw these parallels too much because they're in the same group and all that sort of thing. He's got to do now what Wes Lee did in NXT. Zachary Wentz got fucked over by cancel culture. Let's be clear and real about that. Wes Lee is the side effect of that because they were a tag team. You got this guy that's been, as far as NXT was concerned, labeled as a tag team wrestler who had to completely reestablish himself. He was almost going back to work the next day as a brand new wrestler. Now, Trey Miguel has had a lot of success as a singles guy, but he's known for being part of this group called the Rascals, who are really cool, they're taking the Rascals name with them. Again, not their fault, nothing they planned for. Hope that they get to be on TV. I guarantee you, Trey Miguel will be on TV more than the Rascals will in the next couple of weeks. In the next couple of weeks, you will see more Trey Miguel than you will see Zachary Wentz, Desmond Xavier, or Myron Reed. I can promise you that. And I don't mean shunting them onto dark, and I don't mean shunting them into dark matches, and I don't mean shunting them onto Collision. I mean the primary show, because TNA has a secondary show as well. TNA has Explosion, and I would not count Explosion. If they shunt Trey Miguel onto Explosion, dickhead move. If they shunt the Rascals onto ROH, doesn't count. I'm saying Impact versus Dynamite, you're going to see more Trey Miguel than you are going to see of his former teammates. Mark my words, come back to this comment section right here if I'm wrong about that, because I don't think I am. Stoked as hell for Trey Miguel. I cannot say that enough. Stoked in a different way for Ash by Elegance, because whatever was going on in her life before that was going to keep her from wrestling, it's gone now. And you know what? If it was a work, that means she was never injured in the first place, and isn't that the best news possible? The shake-up with the system, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, let's see how it goes. We're going to have Babyface Moose out there all on his lonesome, probably fighting the guys from NXT. It's going to be great. Now, switching gears to the AAA side of things, and yes, I know it's still talking about WWE because WWE owns them and whatever, yeah, but they're still doing their own thing, and they've got themselves a TV deal per se. Oh, well, they're just on YouTube. Okay, well, so was Saturday night's main event. Saturday night's main event, where you saw Sami Zayn get the obvious win, which was great. You saw Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu. Wasn't even a match. An amazing, out of nowhere, AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura match, which we can talk a lot more about at another time. Rhea, Io, Liv Morgan, and Roxy showed how fucking awesome they are, with the input also from Raquel Rodriguez and Stephanie Vaquer. Great show of talent from the ladies. Everybody brought their A game. But you know what? Saturday night's main event, if you're not in the States, it's on YouTube, and that's where AAA is, and that's just fine. I like that they time shifted it so that the shows wouldn't overlap. That was a smart move as well. But last week set it up. Last week there was, hey, this is what the show is going to be like. They gave us a couple of random talents. They gave us the number one contenders match with Americano versus Vikingo. This week, though, was let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. Let's, showcase some of our other titles. And you only have 3 matches. It's only an hour long, the AAA show as well. It wasn't even an hour long. It was like 55 minutes. But you got 3 title matches and some news from, what's his name? Penta. There we go. Penta sat down. The interview was in Spanish, but it was subtitled, which is great. They didn't do the subtitling and the translating as much on the opening week, and that was something that I had criticized. Not that it wasn't in English, but at least let us know what's being said. And they changed that up this week. The in-ring promos had subtitles. The interviews had subtitles. Commentary along the way was also letting us know, hey, he's talking about this. He's letting you know about that. He's referencing this. He's referencing that. He's making a nod to this this tradition or that tradition or whatever. The commentary team that they have, and it's not live. I'm pretty sure it's done in post, which is fine. They'll figure it all out because it's the Spanish commentators, obviously, that are at ringside. But the commentary team of Rey Mysterio, JBL, and Corey Graves is phenomenal. You had the Cruiserweight Championship up first. Laredo Kid defending against Octagon Jr. and Mini Vikingo. I read that in the preview, and I said, what the fuck is Mini Vikingo? Okay, let's go. Realistically speaking, Mini Vikingo is a tiny dude that is dressed like Vikingo. Does what it says on the tin. This match was great. The layout of this match was great. We're all familiar with Laredo Kid, or most of us are. I figure if I'm familiar with somebody, then everybody must be, because I'm pretty basic in my wrestling. But I've seen Laredo Kid here. I've seen Laredo Kid in TNA as well. He's still the current reigning, defending AAA Cruiserweight champion. We've seen a lot of Octagon Jr. because he's done a lot of crossover with WWE. Most notably, he had the match at, Money in the Bank against Dominic Mysterio. Mini Vikingo, never seen him before. The story of this match was really, it's Octagon Jr. versus Laredo Kid. That seems to be the match that they want to give us again eventually, with Mini Vikingo kind of like constantly inserting himself in, proving himself that he should be there as well. Octagon Jr., Laredo Kid carried the match. Mini Vikingo was the third wheel on the outside, constantly trying to not be the third wheel. And it was a great story. All three of them looked great. High-flying, lightweight guys, doing the exciting stuff, doing the spot fest stuff in the right way. Laredo Kid got the victory. Everybody looked good in the match. I don't know. They didn't mention whether Mini Vikingo is actually attached to Vikingo, so I don't know whether that's going to be a thing, like is he a minion or whatever the case may be. They didn't say very much. They just gave us a great, fantastic, very exhibition-feeling match. I'll have to look into it, because I didn't write it down and I didn't bother to go look it up. The venue that they're in is really neat, because it's low. The seating seems to be low to the ground, but deep into the recesses, into the back rows. And there's also like infrastructure around the ring, closer to the ring than the fans are. It's a really unique building that they're in. I didn't look it up, I'm not gonna lie, but the place where they're in, it's a nice venue. It's a nice looking venue. Anyway, after the return last week of Santos Escobar getting in the face of current AAA Latin American champion El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., basically saying that his title was going to be on the line. It was going to be open challenge-esque or whatever. It was answered by Mecha Wolf. Now, I'm not going to lie, going into this match there wasn't very much suspension of disbelief, because we know that clearly the story is that El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. is going to defend against Santos Escobar eventually. The open challenge that he does in the meantime is going to be an exhibition, so it just gives me a chance to say, oh, there's Mecha Wolf. I saw Mecha Wolf in the big Battle Royal thing that they did like 2 pay-per-views ago. Guy comes out there like all spooky and goth as hell with the makeup that's sort of, I don't know, Legion of Doom-esque, Kiss-esque, however you want to describe that, like, black and white and a little bit bloody. And he comes out with the wolf head as well. Kind of made me think of Game of Thrones in a way, where they cut off Buddy's head and they sewed the wolf head onto his corpse, which is a really morbid thing for me to be thinking of immediately. Great match. Again, after the first match, after the high-flying match, this was also a high-flying match, but showing that high-flying style is not reserved for the little guys, because these guys are some beefier boys, shall we say, and they were still pulling it off. Very much the same as the first time you see Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam was a guy that you would watch cruiserweights, watch the little guys, in tight air quotes, doing all their flippy stuff, and then there's Rob Van Dam, who's not exactly a small guy, who comes into the ring, or comes into your wrestling life for the first time and says, hey, I'm not a tiny guy, but I can do that too. That's exactly what this felt like. That is exactly what this felt like. Was a couple of the bigger guys still saying, I can do that too. I fully expected that there was going to be an interference from Santos, or maybe a post-match attack, or whatever the case may be. Phantasma was in the crowd, who I believe is Santos Escobar's father. Somebody correct me down in the box below if I'm wrong. But there was no interference from Santos Escobar himself. I'm sure they're building that up for a later date. Now, the third title match on the card, was the tag team titles. So you know this was my jam because I love Pagano and Psycho Clown. Pagano and Psycho Clown are right up my street. It's a Spaz Phoenix derby when it comes to the Psycho Circus. But it was them versus the Motor City Machine Guns, which I had heard of earlier in the week. We made reference of it earlier in the week. But also taking on NGD and the Tokyo Bad Boys. Tokyo Bad Boys was the small team in the match. They were doing the most flippy-dippy-doos. They were doing the most fast-paced stuff. And again, kind of like the triple threat, it kind of felt like NGD and the Tokyo Bad Boys were having sort of a match, and then the real match was the Clowns versus Motor City Machine Guns. Motor City Machine Guns were really good to see. They kind of came off like dicks. I think they were assuming that they were going to get that reaction because they were the outsiders. They were the ones coming up from WWE, and you know, Pagano and Psycho Clown are as popular as they are. A hell of a match. When it did get into, like, everybody in the ring at once, it was kind of mayhem. When it did come down to, okay, either Motor City Machine Guns or the Psycho Circus taking on Tokyo Bad Boys or NGD, there was a little bit of a feeling of, okay, but, like, tag in Motor City Machine Guns because that's the real match. Again, it's got a feeling, like I said in the first match, of here's the 2-on-2 match that we're going to get eventually. Here's an advertisement for that, and we'll throw some more people in there so you can get to know who they are. NGD, Paraluchadors, don't know what their names are. I'll get to know them better as we go on down the pike. They were really fun to watch as well, the way they rebounded off of each other, the way they rebounded off of the fastest team in there, which was the Tokyo Bad Boys. It was almost like a separate match happening at the same time, but then the champions and the big outside name were obviously the more marquee part of the match. Fun as hell match. What do I want to say here? The Psycho Circus won. In the back, they didn't show it on the Tron because in the AAA shows, they've got advertisements running on the Tron during the matches, which I'm getting used to, but it's still distracting. But we saw backstage that Panic Clown of the Psycho Circus had been taken out with no indication as to who it was and whatever. But after the match, the clowns go to the back. They meet up with, like, Murder Clown and Frank the Clown and all the other clowns back there who cut off the celebration to say, hey, like, look what's happened to Panic, and he's already in the ambulance, which means he's been waiting in the ambulance for the guys to come back and see that he's been hurt, which is a little bit of a storytelling black hole, a bit. But they're all out there, like, wailing their frustration and their worry for their friend as their friend pulls off in the ambulance. It was a little bit over dramatic, even I will say that, but it was still a lot of fun. The matches were great. The matches were solid. You put a focus. I think it's great. You focused on all your titles as much as you can with Dominic Mysterio being injured. You had a number one contenders match for the mega title last week, and then this week you feature your cruiserweight title, you feature your Latin American title, you feature the story that goes into that title as well. You know, you've got Santos Escobar on the horizon for Dr. Wagner Jr. there. You feature the Psycho Circus, who are an amazingly overact against a team that more people will know in the Motor City Machine Guns, to get that outside sort of mainstream WWE fan investment. And in the process of that, you've got, you know, here's the popular clowns and here's the big popular team from WWE, and you use the combined power of that to put a spotlight on two more teams like NGD and the Tokyo Bad Boys. I think it works for absolutely everybody. All your titles were featured. This is what I will say about last week and the opening episode of TNA. For the people on AMC that had never seen TNA before, they gave them a rundown on the tag team division. They gave them a rundown on the knockouts division. And this is, you know, knockouts are what we call our women's division. They gave a rundown, even though Leon Slater couldn't be there because, you know, he was stolen by WWE. In fact, he just didn't have a passport. But they gave a rundown of what the X Division was and what you could expect. And then they gave you your world title match. With Santana picking up the belt as the big happy ending at the end of the show, after a show that admittedly divided opinion. I think AAA has done a very similar thing here. They did a number one contenders match for their world title, and then immediately the next week they featured all their other titles. It's bringing you up to speed. When you're somebody like me, who only knew about AAA since AAA became part of WWE, which is valid, by the way, it's, you know, paint it by numbers. You know, spoon feed it to me a little bit. Let me catch up to where everybody else already is. Introduce me to these wildly vibrant characters. Introduce me to Mr. Iguana and Mecha Wolf and you know, the whole fucking Psycho Circus. Bring in Santos Escobar. Bring in the Motor City Machine Guns. Bring in Humberto and Angel like they did at one of the first shows that they did, and put the titles on them for a hot minute to have those belts featured on SmackDown. The integration... They've done a weird thing with AAA. They are telling you what AAA is while doing just enough integration to make it, like I say, palatable, but it's not unpalatable to begin with. I hope that makes sense. The big news that we got from Penta in his sit-down interview, and I should have said this before, but I'm going to say it now instead because I'm doing things all out of order. This is why I need a co-host. Shout out to Jake. He had a sit-down interview, and he, first of all, talked about how they almost got to reunite the Lucha Brothers. It has to happen sometime in the future. So I'm sure at some point in the future we're going to get the Lucha Brothers versus the Psycho Circus, and that's going to be fun as fuck. But then he goes on to talk about the Rey de Reyes, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, tournament, which is a Fatal 4-Way, a Fatal 4-Way, a Fatal 4-Way, and a Fatal 4-Way that's going to end in another Fatal 4-Way at the Rey de Reyes pay-per-view, and apparently the winner gets a sword. Let's fucking go! And the winner of the Rey de Reyes Championship obviously gets a shot at the AAA Mega Championship. Now, Vikingo's the number one contender right now. He's going to go after Dominic. I'm pretty sure he's going to fail, because I'm pretty sure this weird tag team of him and Omos is going to go be a thing. So whoever wins... Apollo Crews is in this, by the way. Yeah, a lot of other people, they announced a couple of other people. I thought they were going to announce that Penta was going to be in it. And I laughed last week when I said, oh, maybe his announcement is going to be that he's been drafted to AAA. Clearly that's not happening. But at the same time, the same as they're using Rey Mysterio, who's technically still a Raw superstar, they're saying Penta is going to be there as sort of an onlooker, as an officiant type of thing. He'll be there to present the sword to the winner of the Rey de Reyes tournament at the Rey de Reyes pay-per-view. And I think that's pretty cool. I think he'll probably get involved with somebody at some point. Maybe he'll go to make the presentation and the winner will attack him and they'll have a match before that person gets a shot at Dom and the Mega Championship. But it's pretty cool, man. It's a lot of fun. And as I say, there's not a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of talking about this, at least in the circles that I'm in and on the Twitters that I'm on. So to take a minute and talk to you guys today about what's going on in AAA, what's going on in TNA, let me know, because I think this might be a thing going forward, or it might be sort of a loose, like if I don't have anything else to talk about that particular weekend, I might just come up here and talk about what's happening in TNA and AAA. Now, granted, that has to mean that they give me something to talk about. The first episode of TNA gave me not a huge lot to talk about, and like I say, the first episode of AAA was basically an advertisement for the second week. So if they give me stuff to talk about, I'll come up here and talk to you guys about it. Let me know what you guys think of TNA and AAA and where they are, because they're both, like I said, they're both in a new beginning stage of their existence. AAA is not a brand new company. TNA is obviously not a brand new company. TNA is like Matt Hardy. It just will not die. But because they're just on the outskirts of the conversation, I think they're fun conversations to have. And AAA is just fun, and it gives me weird shit. And if you guys have been following me for any length of time, you guys know I love my weird shit. Anyways, I've rambled on for quite long enough, and my voice is clearly gone. Definitely need a co-host. Another shout out to Jake. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.